First Scholar Zixtal's respiratory sacs constricted as her upper appendages brushed away millennia of crystalline sediment. The excavation site on XO 3349 had already yielded countless mysteries, but this was different. Through the transparent casing of her environmental suit, her chromatophores flickered between shades of academic excitement and professional doubt. First Scholar, her assistant Venkar called out, his voice crackling through the comm system. The quantum dating results are impossible. We've run the tests 17 times. Zixtal barely heard him. Her attention remained fixed on the small object emerging from its ancient tomb, a crude representation of an unseen creature, crafted from materials that her suit's sensors couldn't identify. A teddy bear, if her xenological studies served her correctly. A human child's toy. The dates, First Scholar, Venkar insisted, his own color patterns showing distress. They're reading at 312,000 standard years. Zixtal finished, her voice barely a whisper. Plus or minus a few centuries. She didn't need to see the results. She'd been finding the same impossible numbers all across the dig site. The discovery would shatter every assumption the galactic community had made about humanity. The primitive species that had barely mastered fusion power, the newcomers who still required environmental suits to visit most council worlds, they couldn't possibly have built this. The mathematics didn't work. The history didn't work. Yet here it was, a children's toy preserved in perfect condition, surrounded by walls bearing unmistakably human writing, scripts that linguists had traced to something called Sanskrit and Proto-Indo-European, but impossibly older than either. We should notify the council immediately, Venkar suggested, his defensive chromatophores displaying waves of anxiety. This site, these findings, they'd violate at least 7 different temporal protocols. Zixtal extended a sensory appendage toward the bear, her scientific curiosity overriding standard procedure. The moment she touched it, soft blue light emanated from the toy's eyes, and her suit's sensors screamed warnings about unknown energy signatures. A holographic message sprang to life, displaying a human female in attire Zixtal didn't recognize from any historical period. The woman spoke, her words automatically translated by their suit's systems. Hello, dear friends. If you're seeing this, it means you've begun to uncover the truth. Don't be afraid. Everything that's about to happen was set in motion long ago, for the best of reasons. The toy you found, we call him Mr. Snuggles. He was my daughter's. I buried him here myself, knowing that one day, when the time was right, someone would find him and begin asking the right questions. Zixtal's appendages trembled. The woman in the hologram smiled, as if she could see their reaction across the centuries. Your civilization knows humans as newcomers, as primitives barely worth diplomatic consideration. The truth is more complicated. What you found here isn't just an archaeological site. It's a key, one of many we left scattered across the galaxy. A key to understanding why we did what we did, and what's coming next. A hologram flickered, and the woman's expression grew serious. The toy will activate similar beacons across dozens of worlds. You won't be able to stop it, and trust me, you wouldn't want to if you could. Everything you think you know about humanity, about your own history, it's about to change. Be brave, be curious, and most importantly, be kind to my children when they remember who they are. The message ended, leaving Zixtal and Venkar in stunned silence. Around them, the ancient walls began to hum with the same soft blue light as the bear's eyes. Deep beneath their feet, machinery that had slumbered for hundreds of thousands of years awakened. And across the galaxy, on a dozen worlds including Earth itself, other beacons began to pulse in harmony, counting down to a revelation that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Venkar, Zixtal said quietly, her chromatophores now showing a complex blend of fear and wonder, I don't think we'll need to notify the council. Something tells me they're about to find out on their own. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 200 species crowded the spiral tiers, their voices rising in a cacophony of demands and accusations. High Counselor Eng's Tith, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of extreme agitation, slammed her resonance gavel for the 7th time. Order. The council will have order. Her harmonics cut through the noise, finally silencing the chamber. We will address these discoveries systematically. A holographic display materialized in the chamber center, showing multiple sites across the galaxy. The Krylaxian mining operation on Centauri Prime, where an entire underground city had emerged after a routine sonic scan. The Meridian Colony's moon that turned out to be an orbital platform of clearly human design. And most disturbing of all, the XO 3349 site, where first scholar Zixtal's discovery had triggered a cascade of activations across known space. The inner circle has been summoned, Engstith announced, her crystal facets dimming in what her species recognized as dread. They will explain. 5 ancient beings materialized in the chamber's lowest tier, the inner circle, beings so old they remembered the council's founding. The chamber fell silent again, this time from shock. The circle hadn't assembled in full for over 3 centuries. Elder Kavor, last of the archivists, stepped forward. His tentacled face showed the weight of secrets kept too long. What we feared has come to pass. The seals are breaking, the truth emerging. We have known about the ancient human civilization for centuries. The chamber erupted again. The Krylaxian representative's exoskeleton turned bright red with anger. You knew. While we debated whether to even grant humans observer status, you knew about this. We knew fragments. Elder Kavor continued, his voice heavy. A buried city here, an orbital platform there. But we never found anything active, anything that could confirm our suspicions. Until now. The hologram shifted to real-time footage from Earth's moon. Strange symbols were appearing on its surface, visible from orbit, symbols that matched those found in every other discovery site. Our ancestors. Kavor's voice cracked. They left warnings, stories about beings who came before, who shaped the very paths of our evolution. We dismissed them as myths. But 50,000 cycles ago, we found the first proof. A human installation, older than our oldest civilizations. We sealed it away, burned the records. Why? The question came from an unexpected source. The human ambassador, Jessica Martinez, who had been sitting silently until now. Why hide this from us? From everyone. The chamber's attention shifted. Many representatives were seeing the human ambassador in a new light, wondering what other secrets her kind held. Elder Kavor turned to her, his ancient eyes filled with something like shame. Fear, Ambassador. Fear of what it meant. Each new discovery suggested something impossible. That humanity hadn't evolved naturally on Earth. That you had put yourselves there. That everything we thought we knew about galactic history was wrong. A new alarm blared through the chamber. The holographic display shifted to the Orc cloud at the edge of Earth's solar system. Something massive was moving out there, shedding the ice of millennia. The awakening spreads, Elder Kavor said quietly. We thought we could contain it, control the revelation. We were wrong. Ambassador Martinez, your people, they're not what we thought. Not what you thought. The evidence suggests your civilization didn't rise from nothing. It fell. Deliberately. And now we're remembering. Martinez finished, her eyes fixed on the holographic displays. Her hand went to her temple, as if fighting a sudden headache. Around the chamber, other representatives were receiving urgent communications. Similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. High Counselor Angstith's crystalline form pulsed with emergency frequencies. The human ambassador speaks truth. We're receiving reports from every sector. Human children solving theoretical physics as if remembering old lessons. Adults displaying impossible knowledge. And these installations, these ancient sites, they're all activating, all connecting. In the stunned silence that followed, Ambassador Martinez stood. When she spoke, her voice carried an authority that hadn't been there before, an echo of ancient knowledge stirring in her genes. "The Circle was right to be afraid," she said softly, "but not for the reasons they thought. We didn't hide our past out of shame or weakness. We hid it because we weren't ready to wake up. Not until now." Dr. Emily Blackwood's office at the Xenological Institute was a chaos of holoprojections, ancient artifacts, and empty coffee cups. For 3 days straight, she hadn't left the room, orchestrating what she called the biggest connect-the-dots puzzle in human history. "Play it again, Araya," she commanded her eye assistant. The room filled with floating DNA helixes, each one tagged with temporal markers and location data. Displaying genetic samples from all 17 human colonies and Earth, Araya responded, including the new data from the Singapore Awakening event. Emily watched intently as the strands rotated, her tired eyes catching patterns that had eluded the best xenogeneticists in the galaxy. There was something here, something so obvious that everyone had missed it. "Stop," she suddenly shouted, pointing to a seemingly unremarkable sequence. "There, that's not junk DNA. It's more like encrypted data. Araya, overlay the genetic markers with the symbols we found at XO3349. The holographic display shifted, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. The patterns matched perfectly. What everyone had dismissed as evolutionary artifacts were actually carefully encoded information. A message written in the language of life itself. Her comm unit chimed. "Dr. Blackwood," a familiar voice said, "You need to see this." It was Dr. James Morrison, her colleague from the Quantum Archaeology Department. "We've finished analyzing those temporal echoes from the Antarctic site. They're not random. They're a blueprint." Emily finished his thought, her voice trembling with excitement. "Jim, get everyone to the main lab. I know what happened to us. Why we're really here." 30 minutes later, Emily stood before a hastily assembled group of Earth's top scientists, some physically present, others attending via hologram. The main lab's massive display showed her findings, conclusions so extraordinary that they bordered on impossible. "We've been looking at this backwards," she began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "We thought we were seeing evolution in action, watching humanity climb from the Stone Age to the stars. But that's not what happened at all. We didn't evolve. We devolved. Deliberately." Murmurs of disbelief filled the room. Emily raised her hand, commanding silence. "The evidence is in our DNA. These sequences we've been studying. They're not random mutations. They're more like time-release capsules. Packages of information designed to activate in a specific sequence over thousands of years. Our entire history, every major breakthrough, every leap forward, was pre-programmed." She gestured, and the display showed a timeline of human advancement. "Look at the pattern. Our discoveries weren't random. They followed a precise schedule, each one building on the last, each one activating only when we were ready to handle it. Fire, agriculture, mathematics, electricity, nuclear power. It wasn't innovation, it was remembering." "But why?" someone asked. "Why would an advanced civilization choose to forget?" Emily's expression was grim. "Because we needed to start over. The genetic records tell a story of a civilization facing an impossible choice. Our ancestors were the original elder race, spread across thousands of worlds. But they discovered something that made them take drastic action." The display shifted to show a map of ancient human settlements, spreading across the galaxy like stars igniting in the night. They encoded their entire civilization, their knowledge, their technology, their history, into their own genetic code. Then they used their mastery of biology to deliberately devolve themselves, seeding transformed humans across countless worlds. Each group was designed to evolve along slightly different paths, ensuring maximum adaptability. "But the activation sequence we're seeing now," Dr. Morrison interjected. "It's happening everywhere, all at once." Emily nodded. Because we reached the threshold. The ancient sites aren't just repositories of knowledge. They're alarm clocks. Our ancestors set everything up so that when the time came, when we were ready, we'd remember who we were. All of us, everywhere, together. She paused, looking at each face in the room. And now it's happening. Every human child born right now comes with thousands of years of encoded knowledge ready to activate. Every adult is beginning to access memories they never knew they had. We're not discovering anything new. We're remembering who we used to be. And I think we're remembering now because we're going to need everything we once knew very, very soon. The first recorded case came from a kindergarten in Des Moines, Iowa. 5-year-old Tony Anderson had been playing with building blocks when he suddenly started arranging them in a pattern that made his teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, pause. She took a photo and sent it to her physicist brother. It was a perfect model of a quantum entanglement array. Within hours, similar reports flooded in from across the globe. A teenager in Mumbai accidentally created a working teleporter for her science project, thinking she was just following a dream. A mechanic in rural Australia fixed a crashed Zixian shuttle by just knowing where the parts should go, then proceeded to upgrade its propulsion system while the alien crew watched in stunned silence. Dr. Emily Blackwood stood in her lab, surrounded by holographic displays of these incidents, each one pulsing with a soft blue light that matched the ancient artifacts. Give me a statistical analysis of the awakening patterns. Processing. The AI responded. Incidents are following a logarithmic progression. Current estimates suggest that by the end of the month, 30% of the human population will have experienced some form of memory activation. Emily rubbed her temples, fighting another headache. These headaches had become common among researchers studying the phenomenon, their own dormant memories struggling to surface. Show me the Singapore incident again. The largest display shifted to footage from a primary school's security cameras. A group of third graders had spontaneously begun drawing complex mathematical equations during art class. When questioned, they said they were designing the Star Bridge, a theoretical form of faster-than-light travel that even the most advanced council races hadn't mastered. Dr. Blackwood, ARIA interrupted. Ambassador Martinez is here. Jessica Martinez strode into the lab, looking markedly different from her council appearance days earlier. There was a new confidence in her bearing, an ancient wisdom beginning to surface in her eyes. How are you handling it? Emily asked, recognizing the signs of awakening. The memories. Martinez smiled. They're like dreams at first, vivid but fleeting. Then they start to stick. This morning, I found myself reading Zixian quantum physics texts and correcting their fundamental assumptions. In their original language. It's happening faster than we predicted, Emily said, gesturing to the displays. And it's not just technical knowledge. People are remembering everything. A new alert flashed across the screens. In New Zealand, a fishing crew had just discovered they could communicate with whales, not just through sounds, but through some form of technology embedded in human DNA millennia ago. In Egypt, a tour guide had started reading hieroglyphics as easily as English, revealing that the ancient texts contained technological instructions rather than historical records. The council is terrified, Martine said, watching the reports stream in. The Krathak are pushing for immediate containment measures. They're calling it a security risk. Emily's laugh was bitter. They don't understand. They can't stop this any more than they could stop a child from growing up. This is who we were always meant to be. The lab's sensors suddenly sparked with activity. Above them, the ceiling seemed to ripple like water, revealing glimpses of technology that had always been there, hidden behind veils of quantum camouflage. Another protection system revealing itself, Emily noted. They're appearing everywhere now. Our ancestors didn't leave us defenseless. They just hid our shields until we were ready to understand them. Martinez walked to the window, looking out over the city. Across the skyline, More quantum ripples were visible as ancient systems awakened. "Do you know what frightens them the most?" she asked quietly. "It's not our technology. It's that we're remembering everything, but we're not changing who we are." That mechanic in Australia. After upgrading the alien shuttle, he insisted on having a barbecue with the crew. Those kids reading whale memories. They're using it to organize ocean cleanup projects. Emily nodded, understanding. We're still human. We just remember being more than we thought we were. She paused as another memory surfaced, this one feeling more personal than the others. And I think that was the point all along. Our ancestors didn't just want us to remember our technology. They wanted us to learn who we could be without it first. Above them, the quantum ripples intensified, and somewhere in the distance, another ancient system hummed to life, counting down to a revelation that would change everything. The Krafak battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, their biomechanical ships arranged in the ancestral pattern of dominance. Supreme Commander Vexthar's carapace gleamed with anticipation as he regarded the seemingly defenseless blue planet on his command screen. "The containment fleet is in position," his second-in-command reported. "No signs of planetary shields or orbital defenses. The humans remain as primitive as expected." Vexthar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Send the ultimatum. Standard terms: immediate surrender, cessation of all awakening activities, and submission to Krithak oversight." The message was transmitted. Seconds ticked by. "Supreme Commander," his communications officer called out, confusion evident in his compound eyes, "we're receiving a response, but it's being broadcast from inside our ship." The holographic projectors on the bridge activated without command. A human woman appeared, Dr. Emily Blackwood, looking almost amused. "The Krethak Empire," she said, her voice echoing through every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "Always so predictable. Always so young." Vexthar rose from his command throne. "How dare you?" "Your ships," Emily continued, "are currently surrounded by defense systems that have been here longer than your species has existed. They've been watching you since you first achieved spaceflight, hidden behind quantum veils you couldn't perceive. Would you like to see them?" She gestured, and the space around Earth changed. The quantum camouflage dropped, revealing a vast network of orbital platforms, defense satellites, and energy constructs that defied comprehension. The Krethak fleet, which had appeared to be in a position of strength, was actually surrounded on all sides by technology so advanced it appeared magical. "Impossible," Vexthar whispered. "No," Emily corrected. "Inevitable. Did you really think Earth, humanity's cradle, would be left undefended? Every move your fleet has made was predicted and accounted for millennia ago. Those defense platforms have been tracking you since before you entered the solar system. They've been tracking every ship that's passed through here for the last 300,000 years." Alarms blared across the fleet as weapon systems suddenly powered down. Engine controls locked. Even life support systems now displayed ancient human scripts. "We are not attacking you," Emily assured them. "We're not even defending against you. This was all automated, a parent's way of keeping their children from hurting themselves while they grew up. Your weapons aren't being disabled. They're being recognized as unauthorized modifications to technology that was originally ours." Through his bridge viewport, Vexthar watched in horror as sections of his ships began to transform, ancient protocols asserting themselves over Krethak modifications. The biomechanical innovations his species had prided themselves on were being reverted to their original human designs. "You see," Emily continued, her expression softening, "your species didn't evolve that biotechnology independently. None of the council races did. We gave it to you, seeded it in your development, guided your evolution. The Krethak were particularly promising. We had such hopes for you as guardians." Vexthar's second-in-command rushed forward. "Our fleet is. It's rebuilding itself. Becoming something else." "Becoming what it always was," Emily corrected. "Look at your own genetic records. Look at the sacred patterns your ships follow. They're all based on human designs, planted in your species' consciousness eons ago. We didn't hide our technology because we were primitive. We hid it because we were waiting to see what our children would do with the gifts we gave them. The transformation completed. Where the mighty Krathak battle fleet had been, there now floated vessels of clearly human design, their quantum signatures pulsing in harmony with Earth's defense network. You have a choice now, Emily said, her hologram meeting Vexthar's compound eyes. You can return home, report what happened, and prepare your people for the truth. Or you can stay, and we can begin teaching you everything you've forgotten about who you really are, and why we chose your species as one of our most promising children. In the silence that followed, Vexthar watched his ancestral pattern of dominance dissolve, revealing an even older pattern beneath it, one that spoke not of conquest, but of protection. And for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to feel truly, utterly young. The Antarctic ice groaned overhead as Dr. Emily Blackwood led her team deeper into what they'd thought was just another buried research station. Ambassador Martinez walked beside her, while a delegation of council representatives, including a notably humbled Vexthar, followed close behind. The dating puts this structure at roughly 350,000 years old, Emily explained, her breath visible in the frigid air despite their environmental fields. But what makes it unique is that it's not just preserved, it's been running this entire time. They reached a vast circular door marked with symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Emily placed her hand on a seemingly blank panel, and ancient machinery hummed to life. "Welcome home, children," a warm voice echoed in all their heads, speaking in their native languages simultaneously. The massive door spiraled open, revealing something that drew gasps from even the most composed council members. They stood at the edge of an impossible space, a vast city stretching beyond visible limits, preserved in temporal stasis. But unlike the ruins on other worlds, this place was alive with activity. Holograms of ancient humans went about their business, teaching classes, conducting research, living their lives in a moment frozen in time. "This isn't just a library," Emily said softly. "This is our last day. The day we chose to forget." A hologram solidified, becoming more distinct. In one area, scientists discussed genetic engineering far beyond anything the council races had achieved. In another, children played with toys that manipulated the fabric of reality itself. And at the center, a great assembly was taking place, the moment of decision that changed everything. "Era," Emily called out. "Translate the assembly recording." The scene shifted, focusing on a woman standing before a vast crowd. She looked remarkably like Emily herself, an ancestor, perhaps, or maybe something more complex given humanity's engineered history. "The cycle comes," the ancient speaker announced. "As it has before, as it will again. But this time, we choose a different path. Not to fight it, not to hide from it, but to become something new. We will scatter our children across 1,000 worlds, encode our knowledge in their very beings, and watch them grow again from the beginning." Vexthar stepped forward, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic display. "You chose to devolve, to become primitive. Why?" Emily smiled. "Because fighting against nature never works in the long run. We'd reached the limits of what technology alone could achieve. So we chose to work with evolution itself, to guide it, to ensure that when humanity remembered who they were, they'd also remember what it meant to be young, to struggle, to grow." The holograms shifted again, showing the careful planning that went into humanity's great forgetting, the genetic encoding of their knowledge, the placement of guardian systems, the careful seeding of other species that would one day join them among the stars. "Every intelligent species in the galaxy was engineered by us," Emily explained, watching the council members' reactions. "Not created from nothing. We found promising species and guided their development. The Zixians' color-based language. We helped their ancestors develop those chromatophores. The Krathak's biomechanical affinity. We encoded that into their genetic memory. Martinez touched one of the holographic displays, and it responded to her DNA, revealing even more detailed records. We didn't just guide their physical evolution, she added. We shaped their cultures, their myths, their dreams, every species' legends about ancient guardians or creator gods. Those were memories of us, passed down through countless generations. But why hide? One of the council members asked. Why not simply tell us? Emily walked to the center of the assembly chamber, where the final decisions had been made. Because true growth can't be given, it has to be earned. We needed our children to develop their own identities, their own cultures, their own ways of seeing the universe, and we needed to remember what that felt like. The chamber hummed with ancient power as more systems activated, responding to humanity's awakening consciousness. Around them, the great library of ages began to fully awaken, ready to share its knowledge with a galaxy that was finally prepared to receive it. And now, Emily said, it's time for everyone to remember who they really are. Deep within the Antarctic Library, Emily stood before a holographic display that made her previous discoveries seem trivial. The council delegation had withdrawn to process what they'd learned, leaving her alone with Ambassador Martinez and a visibly shaken Vexthar, who had requested to stay. It's not just about evolution, Emily whispered, her fingers tracing patterns in the light. The genetic engineering, the guided development, the awakening, it was all preparation for something bigger. The display showed a massive stellar phenomenon moving through the galaxy, a wave of energy that defied conventional physics. Ancient data streams indicated it had passed through this region of space roughly every million years. The cleansing, Vexthar said unexpectedly, his mandibles clicking in recognition. There are legends among my people, stories we dismissed as primitive superstition, about a great wave that burns away the old to make room for the new. Not legends, Martins corrected gently. Memories, encoded warnings passed down through the generations. Every species has them, buried in their oldest stories. Emily activated another sequence, and the library chamber filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Points of light showed the location of every human settlement, every guided species, every hidden installation. Together, they formed an intricate pattern, a vast mathematical equation written in civilizations. Our ancestors discovered it during their first expansion, Emily explained, her voice tight with emotion. The wave doesn't just destroy, it restructures reality itself. Traditional technology, no matter how advanced, can't survive its passage. The only thing that can endure is life itself, properly prepared and evolved. The display shifted, showing failed attempts to shield against the wave. Vast energy fields shattered. Dimensional barriers collapsed. Even time itself buckled under its power. So they chose a different approach, Emily continued. Instead of trying to outrun it or shield against it, they decided to surf it, to use it. They realized that naturally evolved life, guided along the right paths, could actually be strengthened by the wave's passage. Vexthar's antennae twitched. The patterns our ships formed, the ones you showed us, were based on human designs. They're wave harmonics, Martinez finished. Every species we guided, every civilization we helped build, was positioned and developed to resonate with the wave in a specific way. Together, we form a vast, living computational matrix designed to not just survive the wave, but to use its energy for the next stage of evolution. Emily brought up the timeline. It's why we had to forget, why we had to evolve alongside our children. Pure technological resistance would fail. We needed to develop naturally, to let evolution itself prepare us. Every species we guided is part of the equation. The Zixian's quantum sensitivity, the Kruthak's biomechanical adaptation, humanity's capacity for rapid change. Together, we're a key designed to unlock something new. The display showed the wave's current position, its massive front approaching their sector of space. They had perhaps a decade before it arrived. This is why we're remembering now, Emily said softly. Not just humanity, but all of us. The awakening isn't just about reclaiming our past. It's about preparing for a future our ancestors glimpsed but couldn't achieve alone. Vexthar stepped closer to the display, his warrior's bearing humbled by understanding. All this time, we thought we were the strong ones, looking down on humanity as primitives. But you were the shepherds, guiding us, protecting us, preparing us for this moment. Martinez smiled. Parents don't raise children by showing them how strong they are. They do it by letting their children grow strong themselves. The library's systems pulsed with renewed energy as more ancient protocols activated. Above them, through miles of ice, the aurora australis blazed with impossible colors as long dormant energy patterns began to align. "We have work to do," Emily said, turning to face her companions. Not as rulers and subjects, not as advanced and primitive, but as family. Every species, every civilization, has a part to play in what comes next. The wave that our ancestors feared. We're going to meet it together, as they always intended. Around them, the Library of Ages hummed with potential, ready to share the knowledge that would help a galaxy of children face their greatest challenge, not as separate species, but as one family, finally awakened to their true purpose. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had been redesigned. Gone was the hierarchical spiral of tiers. In its place stood a circular forum where all species sat as equals. At the center, Dr. Emily Blackwood stood with Ambassador Martinez, addressing representatives from every known civilization. "The wave enters our sector in 9 years," Emily announced, the holographic display above showing the approaching phenomenon. "But thanks to our ancestors' preparation, we're ready to face it together." The chamber had changed in other ways too. Ancient human technology, no longer hidden, merged seamlessly with the contributions of younger races. Zixian quantum matrices complemented Krathak biomechanical systems, while newly awakened human installations provided the framework that united them all. Supreme Commander Vexthar, now serving as the Krathak's chief scientific liaison, stepped forward. "The warrior in me once saw humanity as a threat to contain. Now I understand. They never contained us. They contained themselves, waiting until we were ready to stand beside them." More than that, Martins added, her voice carrying the weight of ancient memory and new purpose. Every advancement each species made, every unique adaptation, was part of a greater design. The Zixian's mastery of quantum communications, the Meridian's temporal intuition, humanity's capacity for innovative thinking, all pieces of a puzzle our ancestors spent centuries crafting. The display shifted, showing the pattern of civilization spread across the galaxy. But now, with humanity's awakening complete, new connections were forming. Lines of force linked different species' territories, creating a vast, living network. "We're not just surviving the wave," Emily explained, her eyes bright with understanding. "We're going to harness it. Every species here is part of the equation. Our differences aren't accidents. They're deliberate harmonics designed to resonate with the wave's passage." High Counselor Engstith's crystalline form sparkled with revelation. The ancient humans, they didn't just prepare us for survival. They prepared us for transcendence. "Yes," Emily smiled. "But they knew it could only work if we found our own way there. If we learned to work together, not out of fear or dominance, but out of understanding and choice." The chamber's advanced sensors suddenly chimed. Above them, the first ripples of the approaching wave became visible to their enhanced perceptions. But instead of fear, the assembly felt a shared sense of purpose. A young Zixian scholar raised her appendage. "All this time, we thought humanity's story was about remembering who they were. But it was really about becoming who we all needed to be." "Exactly," Martinez nodded. "The knowledge we've regained, the technology we've remembered. They're tools, not answers. The real gift our ancestors left us was each other. Every species here brings something unique to our survival equation." Emily stepped into the center of the forum, where streams of data from every civilization converge. "Look at what we've already accomplished together." The Kruthax living ships now formed the backbone of our wave-riding fleet. Zixian quantum mathematics helped us perfect the resonance patterns. Even the youngest species have contributed insights our ancestors never imagined. The chamber hummed with energy as ancient systems synchronized with new innovations. Through the vast windows, Earth was visible, no longer a primitive backwater, but revealed as what it had always been, the heart of a vast, loving experiment in guided evolution. Some of you still ask why our ancestors chose such a difficult path, Emily said softly. Why they made themselves forget, why they let themselves be seen as primitive. But look around. Look at what we've become, not conquered subjects, not guided children, but true equals facing the future together. Martina stepped forward to join her. The wave approaches not as an ending, but as a beginning. And we face it not as separate species, but as one family, finally grown enough to understand the gift we were given. The chance to find our own way to this moment. Above them, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if reflecting the unity being forged below. Humanity had awakened not to rule, but to join hands with the children they had guided for so long. And together, they would ride the wave of change into a future that even their ancestors had only dreamed possible. The chamber filled with light, not from any single species' technology, but from the combined brilliance of all of them. A new dawn was approaching, and this time, no one would face it alone.